Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, December the 8th. Welcome to our video commentary. As you probably know, Senator Franken announced his resignation. This has to do, of course, with some allegations of sexual misconduct. There's even a photo. Apparently, there's more than one photo of some of the things that he was doing. And he has resigned, or at least announced that he's going to be resigning. I believe it'll be at the end of the month, but we don't have an exact date. Then he's going to be replaced by the governor of Minnesota, Governor Dayton. And it appears that the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, a lady by the name of Smith, will then become sort of the acting senator until they have an election in November of 2018. And that's when it could really get interesting. That's when it could really get interesting in Minnesota. Because my good friend Barry Castleman, the Prairie editor, those of you who follow my podcast, you're familiar with Barry. We usually talk to him about, every 6 weeks or so. He's a very good, knowledgeable political commentator, and he knows about as much about Minnesota politics as anybody. And today he posted that Mark Pawlenty, the former governor, could be running as a Republican. If that's the case, that really makes it or gives the Republicans a very good chance of picking up that seat in 2018. And given that there does not appear to be any Democrat of similar stature, that means that Mark Pawlenty could be the next governor, the next senator of Minnesota in 2018. Mark Pawlenty, of course, that's a name that some of you may remember. He was considered by John McCain as vice president in 2008, and even then later, I think he ran for president either in 2008 or 2012, and he was also one of the finalists when Mitt Romney was selecting a vice president in 2012. He's a very good, qualified person who I think if he were to win the Senate, I think you have to look at Mark Pawlenty as a person with national aspirations and someone who could very well be running for president someday. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm simply saying that I think Mark Pawlenty would give the Republicans a very good chance of picking up that seat in Minnesota. We'll see what happens, but I think from the Republican point of view, Mark Pawlenty would definitely be a very good choice. Just a couple of historical notes regarding December the 8th. It was on December the 8th, 1941, that President Roosevelt went to the Congress to get a declaration of war against Japan. What's interesting about that is the last time that we actually had a formal declaration of war approved by the Congress. Since then, we've been in Korea, we've been in Vietnam, we've been in Iraq, we've been in Afghanistan, we went back to Iraq. There have been other short-term operations like Panama, like Libya, and so on, but they were all done by resolutions. They were not done by a formal declaration of war. And I happen to be one of those who believes that the Constitution got it right. We should have a declaration of war, and I hope that President Trump or any future president, if there's indeed a need to commit ground forces or go to war, will return to the Constitution and say, let's have a formal declaration of war. I just think that's the best way. That's the best way to do it. Also on December 8th, for you music fans, it was on December the 8th, 1980, that John Lennon was killed in New York City. It was very late in the day. I didn't stay up that late. It happened around 10:30 Central Time, and I think it was 11 o'clock Eastern Time. He was shot coming into his apartment. Lennon was, by all accounts, killed on the spot. I mean, because the shooting was right in the chest, and I think that the injuries were severe, and by all accounts, he was killed instantly. By the time he got to the hospital, he was pretty much pronounced dead. But that, of course, was a real shock for those of us who grew up listening to the Beatles and remember their music so much. John Lennon had just made a musical comeback. He had been out of music for about 5 years, and then he came back in November of 1980 with a brand new album called Double Fantasy and a brand new single, Starting Over. And he was going up the charts and making a pretty good comeback. Unfortunately, he was killed on this day in 1980, so hard to believe that was 37 years ago. My goodness, where has the time gone? Well, thank you for watching, folks. Thank you for listening to our commentary. We have all of these over at YouTube. We also have them in my blog, and we have them on Twitter. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you later. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas.